Hello, it's Deepa from the Beaumont Library with your recommended read. Today I'll be reading an excerpt from Where the Crawdads Sing by Delilah Owens and published by Putnam. The shack sat back from the palmettos, which sprawled across sand flats to a necklace of green lagoons, and in the distance all the marsh beyond. Miles of blade grass so tough it grew in salt water, interrupted only by trees so bent they wore the shape of the wind. Oak forest bunched around the other sides of the shack and sheltered the closest lagoon, its surface so rich in life it churned. Salt air and gull song drifted through the trees from the sea. Claiming territory hadn't changed much since the 1500s. The scattered marsh holdings weren't legally described, just staked out natural. A creek boundary here, a dead oak there, by renegades. A man doesn't set up a palmetto lean-to in a bog unless he's on the run from somebody, or at the end of his own road. The marsh was guarded by a torn shoreline labeled by earthly explorers as the graveyard of the Atlantic, because riptides, furious winds, and shallow shoals wrecked ships like paper hats along what would become the North Carolina coast. One seaman's journal read, "Ranged along the shore, but could discern no entrance. A violent storm overtook us. We were forced to get off to sea to secure ourselves and ship, and were driven by the rapidity of a strong current. The land being marshy and swamps, we returned towards our ship, discouragement of all such as should hereafter come into those parts to settle. Those looking for serious land moved on, and this infamous marsh became a net, scooping up a mishmash of mutinous sailors, castaways, debtors, and fugitives dodging wars, taxes, or laws that they didn't take to. The ones malaria didn't kill or the swamp didn't swallow bred into a woodsman tribe of several races and multiple cultures, each of whom could fell a small forest with a hatchet and pack a buck for miles. Like river rats, each had his own territory, yet had to fit into the fringe or simply disappear someday in the swamp. 200 years later, they were joined by runaway slaves who escaped into the marsh and were called Maroons, and free slaves, penniless and beleaguered, who dispersed into the waterland because of scant options. Maybe it was mean country, but not an inch was lean. Layers of life, squiggly sand crabs, mud-waddling crayfish, waterfowl, fish, shrimp, otters, fatted deer, and plump geese were piled on the land or in the water. A man who didn't mind scrabbling for supper would never starve. It was now 1952, so some of the claims had been held by a string of disconnected, unrecorded persons for 4 centuries, most before the Civil War. Others squatted on the land more recently, especially after the World Wars when men came back broke and broke up. The marsh did not confine them, but defined them, and like any sacred ground, kept their secrets deep. No one cared that they had held the land because nobody else wanted it. After all, it was wasteland bog. Just like their whiskey, the marsh dwellers bootlegged their own laws, not like those burned onto stone tablets or inscribed on documents, but deeper ones stamped in their genes, ancient and natural, like those hatched from hawks and doves. When cornered, desperate, or isolated, men reverts to instincts that aim straight at survival, quick and just. They will always be the trump cards because they are passed on more frequently from one generation to the next than the gentler genes. It is not a morality, but simple math. Among themselves, doves fight as often as hawks. And that was an excerpt from Where the Crawdads Sing. I hope you check it out.